One thing queer, one thing queer, one thing queer. Let's get one thing queer. Let's get one thing queer.
Hello and welcome to One Thing Queer. My name's Jenny Baton and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Kelsey Wren and my pronouns are she, her.
Hi, Fred.
Hello.
How are you today?
Oh,
It's a rough day.
it's a little hard to make jokes today.
Yeah,
to
it
be real.
is. Today we got some pretty devastating news in regards to the whole abortion situation in the country.
Yeah.
And it's kind of put a damper on the day. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely like a sad day, but yeah, I think we both feel the same way. So just like know that you're not alone if you're feeling that way.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not even like, I feel like the people who know. So I feel like I don't even need to say like how we're feeling, I guess.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know, sucks. It sucks.
It sucks.
And it's awful and ridiculous and devastating and I don't even know.
Yeah.
I'm at a loss for words kind of, but we have so much to talk about today that
We
it's
do.
like, we're going to push through and because this is also important.
Yeah, this is a really important episode and we're very excited to talk about it. But before that, I guess we'll just shoot the shit because we haven't like seen each other. I feel
know.
like in how long? I know it's been like a week, but I don't know. For some reason, since I've moved, I feel like it feels like longer.
Yeah.
Since I haven't seen you, doesn't it feel that way?
Yes.
And I've just been like so busy with work that I've just like haven't. I've been kind of silent.
Yeah, same. It's hard too. Like I think about it too. I'm like, when's the last time I called my mom?
Yeah,
like stuff
same.
like that. Because the days just go.
Yeah.
And there's things to do, and you run through it, and then and if you have a free day and you occupy it with some actual fun in your life, then you're like, oh, it's another day that I was busy doing something. So yeah, but I don't know.
How's your week been?
It just worked and stuff, and we had a weird like torrential downpour Wednesday.
The thunderstorm.
It was wild.
It was wild. I would think I woke up at like 2 a.m. and it was like really gnarly. I don't wake up. Like I'm a very deep sleeper.
Same.
And it woke me up. 'Cause
Yeah.
It was so gnarly. I mean, I do sleep with my window open, so
okay.
maybe that's why, but yeah, it was scary.
We were watching a movie and like it was like interrupting the movie. Like we had it like hella loud.
Yeah.
And like it had like a loud score to it and everything. And I'm like, Bernie just kept on pausing it and he's like, just listen. Like this is wild. I'm like, oh, she mad.
Yeah.
This does not sound like nature. Like something's mad out there. Like you could feel it. It was really, really wild to hear. But yeah, I mean, I hear that some people lost power and thankfully we didn't, but that sucks too. I hope they're okay, obviously, by now.
It seemed like an emotional storm.
Right?
There was a lot of emotion.
It was. And like I said, we just listened and like just listened to it because it was trying to tell you something. It was really, and it was out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. It was like 90 degrees the day before.
Yeah, and the next day it was like 100 and something flipping degrees. It felt like earthquake weather, kind of, or like we call it river weather, like
Florida weather.
kind of. My family, like when we used to go to like the river, like it's hot, but it's muggy and wet, and it could rain also. It's really weird.
Disgusting.
It's disgusting.
I felt like I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
I was like, ugh.
Yeah, and it's like smells like rain, but it's hot from the rain. It's a whole anyway. I guess. But that's just it. Just been working and stuff. But I'm like super also bummed today because the Destroy Boys show got postponed. So
I'm sorry.
I have to wait till August.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
That sucks. Yeah, one of the members got COVID or something.
Yeah, so they're doing a little quarantine for that. So they postponed a few shows, but it will happen.
It will happen all in due time.
Yes.
And it'll probably be an even better show.
That's what I think too. So it is what it is. Oh, okay.
They're chefs.
She says hello.
She says hi. She's like, I'm here.
So how was your week?
It's been good. I've been just busy with work. Still getting settled into my new place. And yeah, just been exploring the area a little bit more with like food places. I really want to like get out in nature because I'm surrounded by nature where I live. There's a lot of trees and I live right like behind my apartment complex. There's a park. And I have taken walks before around the neighborhood, and the neighborhood seems really nice. Like the neighbors will say hi and things like that. I love my roommates. My roommates are so great, and yeah, it's been good. It's been a busy week. I didn't really sleep well last night. I think it's because I ate really late. But yeah, it's been good, friend.
Yeah.
It's just been busy. It's been nice to have full normal days like a normal person, like right after work. Like yesterday I worked like a few hours and then I came home and I was like, wow, I could lay down and watch something.
Oh.
So I like lay down and watch something, and I don't know, like I'm still trying to fight that like feeling of guilt of having leisure time, because I'm not used to having leisure time. So there's still a part of me that feels like guilt.
Yeah.
If I like lay down on my bed for like
you.
an hour and just watch something, I'm like, I should be doing something.
Yeah. I could have been doing this and I could have been doing that. But
I mean,
like,
I did wash or clean my bathroom.
Oh.
I'm like, okay, I need to do something productive. So I cleaned my bathroom.
well, that's something. I mean, that's also, I guess, a little I don't know. I don't want to say it's self-care, but keeping your environment healthy is good, I guess. I don't know.
It is. I feel like it's really good for your mental health. And like, I was always like, I would always do my bed every morning, but now more so, like I like to keep my place tidy and like do my bed every day. And like, it makes me feel good. Yeah. It does something to my mental health. Yeah. And I feel like I haven't really been on my phone. I've been more present recently. Present like in like being around people around me, I guess, but not so much like on social media. I've been posting a lot of stuff for work because I have stuff to post, but yeah, it's like I feel like I entered this new phase in life, and it's exciting.
Less on your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. We did like gardening like all of Tuesday because I was like, I need to touch things and like touch grass.
Yeah, and disconnect.
Yeah, and it was really nice not to be on my phone the whole day because it can put you into this like zone and you almost like can't. It's like it's like a black hole of just your mind getting sucked, basically.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you're exchanging energy with like the whole world, basically. So getting off your phone is healthy.
Definitely. It was definitely, and it's nice to be able to recognize that too. Because Monday, like, I don't know, I was having like a Monday night, I was like not in a good mood. And Bernie was like, are you okay? And I was like, I don't know. I'm irritated and I don't know why I'm irritated. And I'm just like, ugh, like I feel like I can jump out of my skin right now. Like I'm just so irritated. And so the next day it kind of started off that way. And he's like, we're getting out of the house. We're doing things like, so we went to like Lowe's and got like seeds and like did a second round of planting stuff. And after that, I was like, okay, I feel better. Like, but recognizing that was like, okay, yeah, I need to get out today or I'm going to like, it's not going to be good. I'm just going to sink further down. So
Maybe we were anticipating
possibly the
news today.
Yeah, I have been since, because it was supposed to be, I don't know, not to get all the way into it, but it was supposed to be handed down Wednesday, and that's, that was the anticipation for that too, and but it is what it is now today. Yeah. So yeah. So that was I guess our heavy shooting the shit. All right. So what are we talking about today?
So today we are going to be touching base on a very historic moment in history, in LGBTQ history. Did I say history twice?
It's a lot of history, so you can say it twice.
Yeah, it's a lot of history surrounding Stonewall, and the accumulation of stories surrounding Stonewall and what happened before and after. So, yeah, we're just going to be kind of touching base on it, but we do want to disclose that there are many stories surrounding Stonewall, and we don't want to discredit anybody. We don't want to claim that we know everything, because I feel like we watched a lot and we researched a lot, and there was multiple different stories all over the place. So we're not claiming to know it all. We're just kind of gathering the information we gathered and sharing it with you all. And, if you have any input or things that we missed, please feel free to reach out to us. You could email us or tell us on Instagram, DM us.
Yeah.
But we really thought it was important to do this episode as the finale of our Pride Month. We really wanted to end on this episode, end with a bang, because I think we carry our pride every day, but we wouldn't be able to celebrate Pride if it wasn't for all these things that happened during the Stonewall riots and whatnot. So,
and that's the thing too, is it's we want to respect everybody's experience there, all the experiences we've heard, even though they might be, not everyone saw everything happen at all times. It was huge and it was multiple days, so everybody has a little bit of a different story, but we want to respect all those stories because that's their story of being there. So yeah, that's yeah. Sorry. I'm kind of at a loss for words a little bit. It's hard to focus today, to be honest.
Yeah. It is.
But yeah, we do want to just respect everybody's stories. There are some definite facts about what happened that night and how it came about, but everybody's experience that night was valid. So we want to make sure we respect all of that. And if you have a story that we don't know about, please let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Should we do the little overview?
Yeah, we can do the leading up to it, how it happened and all that. Okay. So basically, so I want to state first off that I got kind of my, I guess, facts and stuff like that, my knowledge, I guess. So I listened to a couple podcasts, and I watched that Stonewall Uprising on Amazon, and I think we also both watched The Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson
on Netflix.
And then I also read a lot or listened to a lot of podcasts it's a podcast called Making Gay History with Eric Marcus. He has a great series in his season 5 about all of this, and he speaks with people who were actually there. He has interviews with Marsha P. Johnson and her roommate Randy Wicker. So there's a lot of good sources there. So this is kind of where I'm pulling this. Also, just the internet and YouTube videos, stuff like that. So I pretty much watched stuff all week just so I could have it in my head.
We were both really I guess a little nervous and anxious to do this episode, but I think we both really wanted to do this just because we thought it was important to our history, and there's a lot of things that I didn't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't know, and it's important to recognize that all the rights we do have to this day are because of all these things that happened and because of the people before us and the trans women that were in the front lines.
Yeah.
So
yeah. All right. All right. So we'll set the stage, I guess. So in 1969, homosexual acts were illegal, basically. And because of that, LGBTQ people weren't allowed in bars. And basically the law was any one gay person in a bar could make the bar seem that it's disorderly. So they would shut the bar down. So bar owners wouldn't let them into the bars. So because of that, they never had a place to go, basically. And actually, the mafia, I'm gonna say stepped up, but also they didn't do this for their own voyeurism, their own goodwill to humanity.
No.
So basically, in Greenwich Village, there was a lot of the bars were run by mafia. And what they did was they did it because they weren't afraid of the cops shutting them down.
Pay them off.
Because they would pay them off. And they weren't afraid of the cops getting raided or anything like that, because they would also get tipped off to when they were going to get raided. And basically any bar that would let a gay person in before that could lose their liquor license. And the mafia bars ran without liquor licenses. But because they did that, there was no regulations, no safety. So they would overcharge for drinks, overcharge to get in, water down the drinks. They could do whatever they want to these people because they weren't allowed anywhere else. So that's kind of how the gay bars. So one of the prominent gay bars was Stonewall Inn. Okay, yeah, I was getting to that. Yeah, they weren't heroes because of them price gouging and all this stuff like that. So at that time, there was the New York City mayor was trying to get reelected. And the way he was doing that, the campaign he was running out was cleaning up the streets. So that's further prompted the police to do the raids on all the bars and stuff. that was it. It led to a lot more hate crimes and vigilante stuff as well because of this. Sorry.
Very good.
Okay, so it led to a lot more vigilante doing hate crimes and things like that because of this whole clean up the streets thing. So like we said before, the mafia would get tips on how they're going to, or when they're going to be raided. And they were actually raided like a few days before Stonewall happened. Mm-hmm. And so when they got raided again, it was confusing because normally they did it on a busy night and they could like round up a bunch of people at that time and basically arrest a bunch of gay people at that time because there were so many in there. But this one was different because one, they didn't get a heads up, and two, it was like a weekday when like not a lot of people were there at first.
Yeah.
So that was really, because before they would get warned and they'd like hide all their money basically. So this time like even the bar owners were pissed because they didn't get heads up. So even they were like joining in being mad at that time.
Yeah.
So yeah, they started rounding up people, and this is kind of one of the first I guess stories of how it started. So there was a particular she's self-described as a butch lesbian. So she was getting messed with. The cops were messing with her basically, and she was fighting back. And basically so they start dragging her out of the Stonewall Inn, and she's telling the crowd outside like, what, like, look at this, what are, like, basically like, help, like, what are you guys are just standing there.
Yeah.
Help me out. So everybody started throwing things at them, and that's kind of like when that's when it jumped off basically. So yeah, they tried to, like, people were mad, and there was actually some interesting stories about in the Stonewall Uprising where I guess, well, the people were talking about how they were like, the cops were like bewildered that they weren't, that gay people were actually fighting back, because normally they just let them do it and let them take them to jail.
Yeah. I heard somewhere that they targeted gay people because it was the easiest demographic to arrest, and they had to meet a quota every month.
Yeah.
So raids were probably like the easiest way for them to meet their quota.
Hence the crowded nights.
Hence the crowded nights. And this particular night, I heard it was the day of Judy Garland's funeral. So I guess it was like the day before, because this happened like around 1:20 in the morning. So like the day before technically was the funeral. So they were, I think gathering for that reason. And I think that's why it was like a busier night than usual during the week.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that, like, that's kind of like the I don't know,
theories.
The theories, I guess, of what happened. Lore is a good way, I think, to say it also.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically that's happened. So, once the one particular lesbian was getting messed with, she was like, hey, help me out, basically.
Yeah.
And everybody started fighting back, and it kind of erupted from there. And, bottles were being thrown. They set the place on fire. Like, that's kind of the end of it. And basically from that, it went on for like 5 or 6 days, and kind of the same night too. So they I guess the fire got put out. So they tried to reopen the next night, and it was the same story. The cops came back, everybody started fighting again, and it just kept going on like that for a couple of days. And then a couple of days after that, that's when we got the first Gay Pride March. So before Stonewall, there was 2 societies or 2 organizations that were like the first gay organizations. So the Mattachine Society, which was like the gay men one, and then there's the Daughters of Bilitis. That's it. The Daughters of Bilitis. So they actually, them and along, basically out of Stonewall, they also made the organization the Gay Liberation Front. So that also was another one. And I think they all kind of came together because they all also had different ideas on how to go about getting rights, basically.
Yeah.
So they all had to kind of agree on this, that they're going to do like a Pride March and everything like that. Because actually the like, this is what I was saying before, is that it's kind of like, this isn't the first time like gay people stood up for their rights.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to shout out to this too, because I think it was really cool. In 1966, 3 members of the Mattachine Society like staged a sip-in, but it's like a sit-in.
Yeah.
So they went to bars and like basically like declared that they were gay and like were out and proud about it and waited for the bars to kick them out so they could sue them. So like they could like get their rights for it. So that was really cool to like see that they were trying to do something about it.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, to be real, the Mattachine Society had a little bit of problematic views too, because they kind of they weren't exactly happy with like drag queens and like they wanted gay people to look like suit and tie, straight up, like that kind of thing. They weren't also accepting of other kinds of gay people or other members of the LGBTQ. So
yeah, there was still a lot of problematic views during that time amongst our own community. And we'll touch base on that when we talk about Sylvia Rivera.
So that's kind of the basic gist of what happened Stonewall. But I guess, like you were saying with the Mattachine, so I know a lot of it. I mean, we can get into that now. A lot of it too. So we always hear that like Marsha P. Johnson was like who threw the first brick, things like that. And I think not that she didn't, because again, it's everybody's different account. But I think it's more of a way to say how she was much more in the trans community, was much more influential in Stonewall than they were given credit for.
Yeah.
Because to be real, even in Stonewall Uprising, the movie, it was made in 2010. There's like no, I mean, they talk about drag queens, but they don't also talk about trans people. Like it's blatantly left out.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of where that comes from, is that like, hey, remember that trans people were also a part of this.
Not even just a part, but like part of like the biggest movement.
Yeah.
They were like the biggest part of the movement.
Yeah.
Like they were the frontliners. Yeah.
Yeah, because even there's in that Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson, that they were talking about how like it was a gay pride like the year later, and they were telling like the trans people and drag queens to like go get out of the gay pride.
Yeah.
And Sylvia Rivera goes up on stage and was like, wait a second, like,
yeah,
we've been here, like, you know, we were there.
Yeah. And oh my God, there was that scene, or not that scene, but that moment. And it was so heartbreaking because you just hear the crowd booing Sylvia Rivera, and it just goes to show that even now to this day, trans people don't have the same rights we have. And it just goes to show that, yes, like we owe it all to the trans community.
Because even them too, like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera will also like, they started STAR, which helped a lot of like transgender kids or gay kids on the street. They tried to get them housing. They tried to like do a community, which the other organizations weren't doing.
Yeah.
And if they were, they did not include the trans people in those like services. So they really like started that you know, sector for them to get help and to have people to, you know, they were kind of like godmothers of it. Like they, you know, or even though they were so young as well, like Sylvia Rivera was like super young.
Yeah. And they both died very young.
Yes.
They both died very, very young.
Definitely. Yeah.
I did want to touch on the term transgender wasn't used back then. That term was actually not coined until the early 1990s. And I do have a quote from the Stonewall book published in 1993 by Martin Duberman, I believe. I will link it down below. And it is from Sylvia Rivera, and she says, I am the straight person stereotype in the gay community. They don't want their children to be exposed to someone like me. Even my own community, the gay community, doesn't want to be bothered with people like me. We get beaten up by our own, and it hurts. We are the low trash of life. Which is absolutely heartbreaking. But it just puts things into perspective that during that time, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera didn't get the recognition they have until today.
Yeah.
Like, and it's kind of shitty when you think about it. Now we see them, and there's people profiting off of what they did, and during their lifetime they weren't recognized. And that's absolutely like so sad. That is so sad and heartbreaking.
There's it's heartbreaking also because they were like really also good people. They really tried to help everybody in the best way. And there's a good quote actually in that documentary and in the interview on Making Gay History. Randy Wicker was Marsha's roommate, and he talks about like Marsha like always like oh, you like my scarf? Here you go. It's yours. And I was like, oh, that's so, like, who is that giving? It's crazy. Yeah. And you were right about the transgender, like that's why star actually has like it's more of a derogatory term now, but that's because it wasn't, I don't think because Marsha would have called herself a drag queen.
Yeah.
But I think it's because we didn't have that language before.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put words in her mouth, obviously. So
Yeah.
I think that's why we are saying transgender, I think, if anybody is a little confused.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it would be like what we would identify as a transgender woman. Because back then they did use terms more like queen, and then the other term that I don't feel comfortable saying.
I'm not going to say it either. It's another T word that would be a slur now.
Yeah. And that's just like the language they used back then. So yeah, we just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
And then another term, I don't know if you heard it, was scare queens. And so scare queens was basically, I think Sylvia was talking about it. It's basically putting enough makeup to freak people out. So they would do that on purpose. So it would be like, younger queens that would go out in public and like they were trying to rebel against like their parents' generation, and they would call themselves scare queens. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, no, so like I guess kind of like the lore is like people's stories we can get into. So like kind of in like in Stonewall Uprising they were talking about like the chorus line of queens. So like I don't know if this is their account of what happened, so I'm not going to discredit that. So they were talking, there was a couple men talking about how they were all dressed up in drag basically, and like the cops were coming at them with their shields and stuff, and that like they would like chorus line kick against them basically. And I was like, I'm like, it's funny, but it's like, so like they were also having a ball, like messing with these cops, which was like, it's a way to fight back, and it's a way to hide, like to make light of it or to laugh about it is the way you hide your pain. That's a lot of what they were doing as well. And another story, actually, what I was going to touch on earlier is that, so they were talking about also that they had the cops so outnumbered because there was so many people there that they would actually like chase them around the Stonewall block, so or the block that Stonewall was on. So the cops would go one way and the queens would meet them on one side, and then they would go the other way and they'd meet them on the other side, and they couldn't tell if it was a new group of people or it was the same group. And that was one of the guys was saying it was just crazy because we were just running back and forth to like show them that they're not going to win. Like, and that group of because the original group of police, because it wasn't a lot of people, they were locked inside the Stonewall for like their safety, quote unquote. And so that other group of cops was like their tactical force basically, and it was like they had all like their riot gear and stuff, and it was just these queens and gay people in their just like street clothes, their clubbing night clothes, fighting against this. Like, I
think it was also because they were outnumbered, because like we said earlier, they weren't used to queer people fighting back. So that's why they didn't also like prepare, I guess, in advance of like how many people, were actually going to fight back. And I think that's kind of what made a difference that day, or those days leading up to it, was the fact that, like people were just really just tired. They grew tired and
they were over it.
It just goes to show that people end up growing tired.
Yeah, one of them was saying, because like I think at that point, one of the men was saying that he saw that like black people were standing up for their rights and women were standing up for their rights, and he was kind of like, why don't we do that? Kind of like it kind of clicked in his head basically, and I guess that's the night that jumped off, where it was like time to do that basically. And I don't know. So that he was like, he kind of got inspiration, because it was actually interesting, because a lot of, in that Marsha P. Johnson documentary, there was a lot of people who were like also at like the civil rights movement rallies. So like they were already fighting for rights, and just kind of like, hey, we should also fight for rights for these people. And it was, I don't know, just really nice to see, I guess, that intersectionality.
Yes.
That they were like, hey, we care about all of you, kind of.
It's crazy because there's like endless stories, and you hear different perspectives from different people. I feel like in all these documentaries and all these podcasts, like we said, I feel like there's truth to all of it. I think there's truth, everybody has their own truth and different perspectives. Like there was a lot of people there that day, and there's a lot of people there, and there's a lot of people who also maybe feel the same way they did at the time. So they might leave out other people's stories, and that's kind of what we've learned as well. And we have to remember a lot of them were drunk.
Yes.
So I'm sure,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
some of the
fuzzy.
memory is a little fussy. So maybe that's why the story is kind of, you know.
You know, it's all over the place, kind of, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I mean, everybody's stories are also valid, too.
Yes.
So, yeah, it was just interesting, too, because they were talking about, like, some of the like, laws and stuff that were, like, super barbaric, too. Just to read about that stuff, like, and in around 1967, they were still, like, there was a law from 1845 that was still enacted at that time that was, like, basically you had to have 3 pieces of clothing on that
match your
like given gender or else you were in violation, and then they would they would have a female officer take you to the bathroom and like check what's between your legs. Wild. Like, that's, I mean, not wild, it was like, it's just shocking to be like, wow, I didn't know that was extreme.
And it goes to show that, you know, the way people presented has been a thing forever. Like, you know, since, I don't know, since people became in charge of others.
Yeah.
I guess, like, it's been a thing.
Yeah.
You know, there's been gender nonconforming people as long as humans have been alive. And everything's kind of made up. But
They're gonna come for us.
yeah, they're gonna come for us. But yeah, I also wanted to touch base on how Marsha P. Johnson was such a monumental person when it came to the expression of gender expression and finding your own gender and like figuring that out. Like, we wouldn't have like non-binary, we wouldn't have like all these terms if it wasn't for her.
Yeah.
That's something that I really did want to mention because she broke the norm a lot of and she did it loudly.
Yeah.
And I think that was the difference. She did it loudly and she
Unapologetically.
And just think of the laws during that time and how scary it would be to do what she did.
Yeah.
And she still did it. And just
And paid the price for it also.
And she paid the price for it.
Yeah.
And which is so devastating.
Yeah.
Their stories are they're so beautiful and sad and filled with so much pain.
Yeah.
And I just wish they would have gotten the recognition they deserved while they were alive, because during that time they didn't.
Yeah.
Like, yes, there is a lot of people in the community. There are a lot of people in the community that do recognize them from then, like, because they knew them and whatnot. But I still feel like they're not mentioned enough.
Yeah.
To this day.
Yeah, and Marsha did it so unapologetically and so
eloquently.
Yeah, and like pioneered it so much that she even made it part of her name. Like the P, the P stands for pay it no mind.
Yes.
And I'm like, I never knew that. Like, I love that. Like, because people would ask her, you know, what are you this? What are you that? And she said, pay it no mind.
I'm me, honey.
Yeah, that I was like, that's amazing. I had no idea. That's another something I learned. Another something I learned is that also, like, so when in one of the documentaries they were talking about the types of gay clubs, and there was a straight gay club, and it was basically like all the straight married men, quote unquote straight married men, who would like visit gay clubs to, like, it was their club. It was like an upper class whatever kind of club where they would visit and like you hook up and then go home. Like, it's so
it's crazy.
Yeah. It's so ridiculous. Like,
Something's happening out.
Yeah. It's a trash man.
Trash man.
But yeah, I don't know. I really encourage you to also, like, the listeners to, like, go and listen to those documentaries. The podcasts are really, they're short episodes. There's a lot more in there, and there's so many stories, and there's so many documentaries too that have even more stories about what was happening that night and different perspectives on, because like, from factual, it was from, like, the, you know, part of it was the mayor crackdown and, like, the mafia, like, that kind of thing. But there's other people who have different theories about why it was happening.
Yeah. And also something that just came to mind was the conditions that Stonewall was in during this time. Like, now it's like a really bougie bar. If you go to New York, it's a very bougie bar. But back then, because it was run by the mafia and they knew that queer people were the ones that would go, the conditions of, like, of the glasses, like, they didn't have running water in the bar. So what they would do, they had this, like, recycled water
like a bucket.
and they would just like rinse it and then dry it and then reuse the glasses and it's crazy.
That's what they were saying, is that they actually like passed around like viruses because they would be that's what I was saying, is like the mafia they're not to be like exalted because they did this thing and stepped up so gay people could have a bar. No, they did it to price gouge and to like further, because they knew gay people had no choice to just be there. But like it was kind of funny too, because some of those people in the documentary were like, oh, I didn't buy a drink there. Like you could see how dirty it was. Like I did not buy a drink there.
Yeah, and they were watered down.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And they were saying that like the mob was basically like liquor that had fallen off a truck. So like everything was 100% profit in there for those people. They owned the jukeboxes, they owned like the cigarette machines, like it was all profit for them. Like they basically had to pay the rent and like pay off the cops and that's what they had to pay. It's wild.
It's crazy.
It is really crazy. And they owned like most of the bars in like Greenwich Village. Like it's just what?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so sad.
Yeah. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so wild. What was the thing you were saying about the top floor of Stonewall?
Oh, so I heard, I was listening to a podcast. I was listening to You're Wrong About podcast, and it was the Stonewall Uprising episode, and they had mentioned something about how there's 2 floors to Stonewall, and there was on the second floor they were running a sex ring, and it was all black males up in the second floor, and that's something that I don't know if it's true or not, but that's one of the stories.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And I guess straight in quote men rich men would go there.
I was dying because they kept calling it a straight gay bar, and I was like, what? It doesn't.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Also though, the something I noticed too, astrology talk a little bit. So a lot of people were talking about how that night it was the biggest moon, the biggest brightest moon they saw. So I was like, ooh, full moon energy that night.
Was it?
That's multiple people were saying the moon was so bright we didn't even need the street lights.
What?
I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
I never knew. But there's even like footage, and it's like you can see the moon in the footage. Like
that's crazy.
Wild.
But that explains it.
Yeah.
People being fucking fed up with being treated like not humans.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's insane. Our history is so sad.
Yeah. And that was the thing too. I was kind of struggling with some of the like facts I was learning about the laws back then. And it was so awful and devastating that I just didn't even know if I wanted to bring them up, because I mean, I know that's a good place to know from, or it's a good thing to know the history, but it's just so, because those laws aren't current laws, it's just, I don't even know if I want to bring up that triggering like response. It sucks.
Yeah.
Even seeing that, it was just like, ugh, like
the laws were ridiculous and disgusting. So I don't even think they deserve a moment.
Yeah.
I don't even want to bring them back into existence.
Agreed.
So
yes,
we'll leave it there. But the relationship between Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera was very beautiful. They were friends, and they both very much cared about each other. In the documentary, I saw a lot of there was a lot of footage of Sylvia grieving Marsha, and she always was mentioning her.
Oh yeah.
And unfortunately, Marsha died, and to this day, we don't know exactly what happened. It became a cold case. In that documentary, there's a person that was trying to figure out and solve the mystery of her death, because there were theories that she was murdered, unfortunately, and it's very, very sad. We don't know exactly what happened, but and then there was a point where Sylvia, they showed Sylvia in a very vulnerable state. When she ended up being homeless for about 18 months, and then after that, I believe a group of queens reopened Star, and they brought her in, and it was such a full circle moment.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Sylvia died from liver disease at the age of 50.
Yeah, it was even Marsha's roommate Randy Wicker was talking about her, and even like that documentary, the Marsha P. Johnson one, I believe it's a few years old, and even him tearing up just talking
About her.
this many years later is like, that's all you need to know about the type of person Marsha was, is that like the mere thought of her for him is like, it makes him tear because of how much he missed her and loved her.
Yeah.
It's just like, that's what everybody was talking about.
Her. Like, it made me so emotional. I'm even getting emotional.
Yeah, I
right
know.
now
I was
thinking
like,
about it.
Again, stop looking at me because we're both gonna tear up.
Yeah, it's just like she was such a beautiful human being, and it just makes me sad that she didn't get that recognition, and her life was cut so short, and we really, really like owe tribute to her and Sylvia Rivera and all the trans people that were in the front lines during the protests, and
everyone that was there too. I mean,
everyone that was there. We owe it to them, to where we are, and we still have ways to go because we still are fighting for trans rights as we speak, and we need to do the same.
Yeah. Ugh, heavy sigh.
Heavy side of this episode.
Yeah, but I would love to hear if anybody has any other stories or any other sources you've come across that we don't know about.
Any books?
Yeah, books, anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
I think
I think that wraps it up, kind of.
Yeah, that's kind of the gist of our take on what we gathered about Stonewall and the gay rights liberation front and all that.
Yeah, we hope you had a happy and safe Pride.
Yes.
This
Happy
episode will come
Pride.
out on the close of it, so happy Pride.
Happy Pride forever and ever and ever. And we are all family, and we are all loved. We love you. We love each other, and we support one another, especially our trans folks out there. So I guess we'll start doing socials.
I wanted to read something real quick.
Oh, okay.
So I always do that too. I'm like, wait, I'm finding it. It was kind of a post I found a while ago, or a couple days ago or something, that I posted on my personal Instagram. So if you follow that, you probably know. Basically, it was saying, I'm not sure who said it, but it says, gay pride was not born of a need to celebrate being gay, but our right to exist without persecution. So instead of wondering why there isn't a straight pride movement, be thankful you don't need one.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
That's the gist of Pride.
That is it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, I guess we'll do our socials.
Yeah, please follow us on Instagram. It's One Thing Queer, and my personal Instagram is SpexRayX.
And my personal Instagram is at Jenny Lynn Bouton. And if you would like to come on the show, or if you have any stories or questions or need advice, feel free to email us at onethingqueer@gmail.com. We also have a TikTok. It is at One Thing Queer Podcast. And
we say it every week.
Just go follow.
Don't even say it.
Just go follow. We'll post eventually. We have a lot of posts on there already, but if you're just tuning in, we have a lot of posts on there.
We're trying, y'all.
Yeah, we're trying, y'all. But
it's rough.
It's rough up in here. All right. But yeah, happy Pride, everyone. We love you all. And I guess that's...
Stay safe out there.
Yeah, stay safe out there.
Yeah.
And I guess...
We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Graphics by BexUniverse.co. Music by Jacody.